My Haitian Friend, written by Mary and Venkat, read by Venkat. It was a Sunday afternoon during the end of June in 2011. My mother was very adamant that I packed everything for my trip to Haiti next week. In a week's time, I will be in Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, visiting my uncle. My name is Flora, a 16-year-old American girl living in San Francisco. My parents are from the USA. I was born when they were working in Haiti for a few years. We lived in Haiti until I was 10 years old. But after that, I moved back with my parents to the USA. Ever since, my parents took me to Haiti every year during the summer holidays to visit my uncle who is still living there. But after the earthquake in 2010, we stopped visiting Haiti. It was around 4 p.m. The doorbell rang. When I opened the door, it was my best friends, Jane and Susan, standing there, smiling. They are here to play tennis. We play tennis every Sunday afternoon. They looked very excited. They came inside the house and sat on the couch. Susan asked, "Flora, your mother told us that you're traveling to Haiti to meet your uncle. Is it true?" Yeah, that's true. I'm flying next week, I said. Well, we are a bit bored during the holidays and would like to discover a new place. Can we come with you? We heard that there are a lot of beautiful beaches in Haiti, said Jane. I told them that I had no idea how Haiti looks like after the earthquake and the cholera epidemic. But they seemed to have made up their mind that they wanted to visit Haiti. Well, okay, if you are very keen to come there, of course I'll be very glad to take you both along, I told them. I myself was a bit excited that I could show them the place where I was born. Tell us about Haiti, Susan asked with a curious voice. Well, let me explain it to you, I said. Even though Haiti is a very small and is the poorest country in the southern hemisphere, it is very special to me. It is a country filled with culture and tradition. It is a beautiful natural environment. The marketplaces, Jane, the marketplaces are very colorful. You know what? And also, most of the people of Haiti are warm-hearted and full of confidence. Well, Jane and Susan, it's like paradise to me, I said. Tell us about the earthquake, Susan asked. Okay, there was trouble in the paradise, as they say. During January 2010, there was a magnitude 7 earthquake that shook the entire nation. More than 300,000 people were killed, and more than 1 million people were left homeless. Most of the buildings, including hospitals, schools, churches, and universities, were destroyed. When I heard the news, my whole family was heartbroken. Well, Jane, just imagine a country in which most of its hospitals, churches, schools, and universities being destroyed. Haiti was in big trouble, I said. Jane was pretending to listen when she was actually texting other people in her mobile phone. Susan looked at me and said, "Well, it seems that life is pretty difficult out there." "Yeah, it is," I said. Susan said that she will reconsider if she wants to come to Haiti or not. She was reluctant to leave behind all the comforts that she could find in the USA. The next week, as I expected, Susan did not come to Haiti. I guess she was a bit scared about coming there. So it was just Jane and I who left to Haiti. When we landed in Haiti, it was very hot. My uncle and his assistant Emmanuel, a native Haitian, were waiting for us in the airport. We hugged each other and spoke for half an hour before leaving the airport. Jane looked very excited. Both of you girls are going to stay with me in Port-au-Prince for a few days and then you can visit Jacmal, the place you were born. So you can meet your old friends, Flora, my uncle said. The airport was of considerable standard, but as we stepped out of the airport, the atmosphere was completely different. The entire place looked very dusty. There were many people standing in front of the airport asking to carry our bags to our car. It was as if they were fighting over who would carry our bags. Jane was scared, presuming that these people might steal her bags or kidnap her. She held close to me and gripped her bag tightly. My uncle and Emmanuel said that we did not need any help carrying our bags and forced their way through the squabbling crowd. When we entered the car, Jane slammed the door shut as quickly as possible. "Don't be scared, Jane," Emmanuel assured her. The car started moving. Outside the airport, there were a lot of cars standing as if in a mesh. Most of the buildings on the wayside were all destroyed in the earthquake. Many buildings were cracked. Many cars on the roadside were still left abandoned, smashed by the rubble that fell down on them during the earthquake. We could still see that there were cars trapped inside the rubble. It has been a year and a half since the earthquake, but still its tragic wounds have not yet healed. What I saw outside revealed more about the earthquake than all the news I ever saw or heard in the TV. But the people still looked very busy carrying out their everyday work as usual. That is what I really like about the Haitians. They are very hard workers. Very hard workers. I could see that Jane was a bit upset to see the devastation all around us. "Are you okay, Jane?" I asked her. "Oh no, there's only rubble. Heaps and heaps of rubble piled everywhere. How can people possibly live here?" Jane said incredulously. There was silence in the car. Jane realized that she had hurt the feelings of other people, so she also kept quiet. I could see that the way Jane saw Haiti was very different to how I have known it to be. To me, Haiti is a place filled with warm-hearted, positive and friendly people whose faces are always full of smiles. Whereas to her, Haiti was just rubble filled with poverty and desperation. I knew that if she could just meet my friends and talk to the Haitian people, her opinions and preconceptions might change. If she could just see beneath the rubble and into the hearts of people, I knew that it would give her a better understanding of Haiti and its people. We reached my uncle's house and had dinner. We fell asleep at once dinner was finished. "Ouch! What is it?" Jane screamed in the middle of the night. I switched on the light. It was a mosquito biting her. There were a lot of them in the room. Jane was scared that she might be infected by transmissible diseases such as malaria. We switched on the mosquito repellent and fell asleep. The next 2 days, we stayed in my uncle's house. He had a big swimming pool and we often swam. Whenever I suggested that we go out, Jane disapproved of the idea. "Jane, you have to meet the people. Only then your fears and preconceptions will change," I said. She just pretended not to be scared or to have any preconceptions and just made several excuses to stay indoors. I went outside with Emmanuel. He showed me the damaged presidential palace and explained me about the tragic events of the earthquake. It was very hard listening to it all. The next day, I suggested to Jane that we meet my old friends in Jacmel, that is around 2 hours by car. I was born there and I wanted to visit my old house, which I heard was only partially destroyed in the earthquake. I also wanted to show it to Jane. She admitted that she had been a bit childish in staying indoors and reluctantly accepted to the idea of coming along. Emmanuel drove us to Jacmel. The roads were damaged and old. On the way, we saw colorfully painted tap tap buses, which are the major means of transportation in Haiti. The car traveled very slowly as there were children playing in the road and there were stray animals which blocked the road. We were about to reach Jacmel when we came across a lot of tents, densely filling on both the sides of the roads. "What are these tents here for?" Jane asked. Emmanuel explained that after the earthquake, most of the people lost their homes and had to live in tents like this. Since the government has not yet made any arrangements for the people to have a proper place to live, they continue to live in these tent towns. He added that there are a lot of non-governmental organizations that actually help these people. Jane was a bit shocked and disappointed to see the way these people lived. Suddenly, the car stopped. What's happening?" I asked. "I don't know. Let me check," Emmanuel said gladly as he got out of the car to examine the wheels. In the meantime, I asked Jane if she wanted to get out and have a closer look at the tent town. Jane looked nervous and said, I'm sorry to ask this, but is it safe to stop here?" What do you mean, Jane?" I asked her. "Flora, the people living in these tents have no home. They may be starving and might be dangerous. These people are poor and might want our money. They might see two white girls and attempt to kidnap us. Moreover, this place is so filthy, and I'm sure we are at risk of disease," Jane said. No, Jane, no. They won't kidnap us or steal our money. They may be poor and desperate, but they are good people. Trust me," I said. "I trust you, Flora, not them," Jane said. I was pretty disappointed at what she said. Since I did not want to show my emotions, I just looked out through the window on the other side of the car and said nothing. A man smiled at us from the side of the road. It is very good to see how the Haitians manage to smile even amidst such chaos. Jane was just too scared to smile back. "Allô, tu baggy enfant?" the man shouted. "Is he asking for money?" Jane asked. "No, Jane, he's asking if everything is okay with us. He is speaking in Creole, the native language of Haiti." Creole and French are the most popular languages spoken here. Oui, monsieur," I shouted back at him. He smiled and walked away into the tent town. In half an hour, our car was fixed and we moved on. When we reached Jacmel, the car stopped outside my old house. The earthquake had caused a big crack down the side of the house. We looked all the way around the outside of the house to check if it was safe enough to go inside. It looked as if the roof might fall down any time. Since no one lived there anymore, the house was very dusty and dark. My uncle was making arrangements to reconstruct the house next month. The old house brought back a lot of memories which I shared with Jane. I showed her where my room used to be, and the kitchen and the living room, etc. After a while, we went to the garden. There were a few trees and a lot of flowers when I lived there, but no more. The garden looked more like a waste ground, covered in weeds now. My neighbors' houses were all destroyed. I wanted to see inside the house, and so I just stepped into the house carefully, whilst Jane just stayed in the garden. After a few minutes, I heard Jane screaming, "Ah!" Emmanuel and I both went running to her. What happened, Jane? What happened?" we questioned her. Jane was down on the ground and seemed to be in a lot of pain. She said that there was a small hole in the ground and she had accidentally fallen over it. There was a big swelling in her leg. I feared that she might have a fracture. I didn't know what to do about it. Emmanuel said that we should take her to the hospital. I asked him where the nearest hospital was. He said that the main hospital in Jacmel has been destroyed in the earthquake, and so the nearest one now is in the tent town. Jane looked at me and said, Flora, no, I don't want to go to the tent town again. Please find another solution." "I'm sorry, Jane. I know you're afraid about going there, but we have no other choice now. If it's a fracture, you'll need urgent medical attention," I said. Jane understood the seriousness of the situation and agreed to go to the tent town. Emmanuel and I drove to the tent town. The journey took almost half an hour. We parked the car in the roadside and helped Jane to walk to the hospital. Now we were about to have a closer view of the tent town. The tents were made of cloths, tarpaulins, wooden sticks and all possible materials. "This place smells bad," Jane said amidst her pain. We couldn't find the way to the tent hospital. A little boy and girl showed us the way. As we entered the hospital, we noticed we were the only white people in there. The hospital itself was in a very big tent. There were a few bandaged patients lying down all the sides. "The doctor will be here in a minute," a nurse said as she asked us to wait. Jane's pain seemed to be increasing. Eventually, the doctor came. Let's see what's wrong." The doctor came into the tent with a big smile. It was the same man who had asked us if everything was okay a few hours ago when our car stopped in the tent town. "We meet again," he smiled at us. Jane was surprised on seeing him. He examined Jane's leg thoroughly for almost 10 minutes. Don't worry, it's just a sprain. You have just twisted your ankle. It's not a fracture. So, be happy." He smiled at her. "With an injection, you'll be okay. Wait there, I'll be back in a moment with a painkiller and an anti-inflammatory cream." Saying this, he left us. In the meantime, there were at least 10 people who came to us and asked if everything was okay. The people were quite friendly. They all smiled at us and reassured us that Jane will be okay in a while. I guess that Jane was not as scared of the Haitians now as she had been initially. Suddenly, I recognized a familiar face. My childhood Haitian friend and next-door neighbor Variola. "Hey, Variola!" I yelled out. "What are you doing here in the hospital?" She turned to me and and the next moment she came running towards me. We were very happy to see each other after a long time. Flora, what a surprise! I'm working here as a volunteer nurse. When did you come to Haiti and what brings you here? She asked. I explained to her all that had happened earlier and introduced Jane and Emmanuel. Don't worry, Jane. The doctor who treated you is very good. He studied medicine at Cambridge University. He came back to Haiti after the earthquake to serve us here, Variola said. Wow, this doctor must be very clever and pretty dedicated, we exclaimed. The doctor came back, and while he was treating Jane with medicine, Variola and I chatted. Variola told us about the post-earthquake Haiti. A few minutes later, the doctor said that Jane should take care of her leg and not walk a lot for a week at least. As we left the hospital, the other patients were smiling to us and waved goodbye. The Haitian doctor was very kind. The other patients were very friendly too. I never expected them to be so warm-hearted, Jane exclaimed. Variola came along with us as she had just finished her day's work. She invited us all to her tent and we all accepted her invitation. We all decided to visit her tent. The second tent to the hospital was where Variola and her family stayed. When we were children, I remember that Variola and I lived next to each other. She lived in a big house with a garden. But now she was living in a blue tent with the name of the charity who donated it, written in large letters across both sides. As we entered the tent, I could see that there were very few things inside. A few clothes hanging around and some kitchen utensils. That's all. In one corner was a picture of a family. Where's your mother? I asked. She died in the earthquake, Variola said sadly. I'm very sorry, Variola. Tell me everything about it, I said. It was during the night of the earthquake in 2010. We were all sleeping, you see. The earth shook and there was much noise. I thought I was having a nightmare. I could feel my father lifting me and running out into the street with me in his arms. My mother picked up my little sister and tried to follow us. But she did not make it. Before my mother and my sister could escape, the house collapsed. We did not know what to do. All the buildings in the street were just rubbles. Everyone were either screaming or crying. That is when I realized that it was not a nightmare, but real. I could not believe it, Flora. I could not believe it. Hundreds of people in our street were dead. There were tears in her eyes as she spoke. She continued, We were a very content family, but in just a few seconds, we went from having almost everything we needed to having nothing. I'm very sorry, Variola, I said, hugging my shabbily dressed old friend. I remember Variola's mother was a very gentle lady. When we were children, she would offer us mangoes from her garden and even play with us. My father and I were very sad. We tried very hard to remove the rubble and to save our mother, but the rubble was so heavy. Only after 3 days, the rescue workers were able to remove the rubbles. Variola continued. It's okay, we live on. A charity organization donated this tent to us. Since our school was also destroyed, I decided to volunteer at this hospital until a new school is being built. Variola wiped her tears and said with a smile, "Guess what? Along with the doctor, I have saved many lives now." Jane was in uncontrollable tears. "You're amazing, Variola. If I were you, I'm not sure if I might be as strong-hearted and gentle and virtuous as you are." Jane was able to feel the suffering of the Haitians, their strong yet tender heart, and their courage amidst adversity. She came close and hugged the smelly Haitian friend of mine and said, "Variola, I could not even bear the pain of a twisted ankle. But you've gone through a lot of physical and emotional suffering. But you're still very strong in heart." Variola was very touched by this gesture. After a while, Variola made us a cup of tea in her tent. "I would like to stay here as a volunteer in the hospital with you," Jane said. I was thoroughly surprised at this. I understood that Variola had finally seen beneath the rubble of her own self-assumptions and into the real heart of the Haitians. I was proud of her. After getting permission from our uncle, every day Emmanuel dropped us in the tent town in the morning. We volunteered in the hospital along Variola, even though it was smelly, even though there were no basic facilities. There were good people around us. Emmanuel would take us both back to my uncle's home every evening. We brought food and clothes to Variola and others in the tent town. We played with the children and made a lot of Haitian friends. When it was time for us to go back to the USA, all that we wanted to do was stay longer. "We'll come back next year," Jane and I shouted as we left those amazing people who lived in the tents of that tent town.